We begin the news in the Federal Capital Territory. The federal government has suspended the planned 15% import duty on petrol and diesel. The Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority announced that the implementation of a duty is no longer in view. According to the authority, there is an adequate supply of fuel products across the country. It also warned marketers against hoarding, panic buying, or hiking prices. Officials say they will continue to monitor supply to ensure stability during this peak demand period. The federal government of Nigeria has officially scrapped the 2022 National Language Policy that mandated using the mother tongue or local languages as the medium of instruction from early childhood to primary 6. Minister of Education Dr. Tunji Alausa, during the 2025 Language in Education International Conference in Abuja, announced that English will now be the sole language of instruction from primary through tertiary education levels. This decision followed evidence-based research showing that teaching in indigenous languages contributed to the poor student performance and high failure rates in national exams. The minister cited Nigeria's complex linguistic diversity and varying regional languages as practical challenges that support adopting English as a unified medium. Now, the clash between the Federal Capital Territory Minister Nyesom Wike and Naval Officer Lieutenant A.M. Yerima over a disputed Abuja land plot has sparked widespread reactions. Several retired military generals condemned Wike's public confrontation, describing it as disrespectful to the chain of command and undermining military discipline. The former Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Tukur Buratai, called for a public apology from Wike to the President, military personnel, and the officer involved, warning that such actions threaten national security. However, Wike's aide and a senior advocate of Nigeria and constitutional law expert, Professor Sebastian Honorable, defended the minister, stating that the dispute arose from illegal land activities involving a former Chief of Naval Staff, Vice Admiral Zubairu Gambo, who allegedly used military influence to assert ownership of land illegally partitioned and sold for non-designated users. The federal government has ordered an investigation into the land dispute confrontation and ensured accountability and public discipline. President Bola Tinubu has tasked the media to promote national cohesion and strengthen democracy through responsible journalism. President Tinubu made this known while declaring open the 21st All Nigeria Editors Conference in Abuja, with a call on media editors to embrace professionalism. News Central State House correspondent Bettina Nweli reports.
Declaring the event open, President Bola Tinubu commended the Nigerian press for its historic role in defending democracy, describing journalism as an instrument of national awakening.
This conversation is necessary as we continue to build institutions that are transparent, resilient, and trusted by our citizens. Throughout our history, journalism in Nigeria has been more than a profession. It has been an instrument of national awakening.
As custodians of information and interpreters of events, editors shape public opinion and set the tone of national conversation. Our decisions, what we publish, how we frame stories, and the voices we amplify have far-reaching implications for democracy and unity.
Also speaking, the keynote speaker and Governor of Imo State, Hope Uzodimma, urged editors to uphold truth, fairness, and professionalism in shaping public discourse, warning that misinformation and cynicism can weaken the nation's unity. While the Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, described the president's attendance as a historic first, underscoring the administration's respect for press freedom.
For the first time in our nation's history, a sitting president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, His Excellency President Bola Tinubu, is gracing the Nigerian Guild of Editors Conference with his presence. This is a powerful testament to the high esteem in which this administration holds the fourth estate of the realm.
The electoral integrity begins with editorial integrity. So there is a need to understand what electoral integrity means in every sense. It cannot be only about ballots. It cannot be about security alone and logistics. It must include the integrity of the information Nigerians consume about those processes.
The editors' conference continues tomorrow with discussions focused on the future of journalism, national unity, and strengthening democratic institutions in Nigeria. In Abuja, for News Central, Bettina Nwili.
As this year's All Editors Conference focuses on the critical role of the media in strengthening democracy and building national unity, stakeholders are calling on the Nigeria Guild of Editors to ensure that they uphold their gatekeeping duties responsibly, warning that irresponsible reporting and misinformation can undermine national cohesion and democratic stability. News Central's Aisha Saliu is live at the venue of the conference to bring us more details. Aisha, this is another edition of the Nigeria Guild of Editors conference, and there definitely have been different submissions made. What has been the highlights from this conference and the conversation so far?
Thank you so much, Blessings. Well, today is day 2 of the conference that began earlier, and there has been lots and serious around the role of journalism and what editors do. From yesterday even down to today has been a highlight of challenges that newsroom face, which is funding challenge. And the Guild of Editors suggested yesterday that to save the media industry, they proposed a 10-year corporate tax relief for companies, amongst others. Another challenge that is the ethical dilemma upholding the National Broadcasting Commission code and also still carrying out the role of information bearing and also bearing in mind public. And then, the conversations, the sessions today that the editors, they have been talking about, the sessions today has been focused on terrorism, national security. As you can see behind me, there are still conversations going on and addressing the complexities of terrorism and national security. And later on today,
All right, we'll go back to Aisha shortly. But in the meantime, let's turn our attention to National Assembly matters, where the Senate has passed for the second reading of a bill seeking to repeal the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency Act and reenact it as the National Primary Healthcare Development Bill 2025. This bill is expected to establish a stronger legal and institutional framework for accessible and quality primary health services for Nigerians. Lawmakers also passed the Informal Sector Employment Regulatory Bill 2025 for third reading, marking a major legislative move to formalize and safeguard millions of domestic workers, interns, apprentices, and other informal sector employees across the country. Our National Assembly correspondent, Sergio Bryan, brings us more details from Wednesday's plenary.
869-1070.
Lawmakers settled down for the commencement of the day's business. As they wrap up preliminaries, Majority Leader of the Senate, Okweyemi Bamidele, ahead of the commencement of the day's business, dismissed reports of an alleged attempt to remove the President of the Senate, describing the report as misleading.
There was in fact no discussion around the possibility or otherwise of the removal of His Excellency Distinguished Senator Godswill Akpabio.
As deliberations progressed, a bill seeking to scrap and replace the Primary Healthcare Development Agency Act scaled second reading in the red chambers. The bill, sponsored by Ogun West lawmaker Adeola Solomon, aims to overhaul the country's primary healthcare system.
The current law neither captured the new realities of the universal health coverage and digital health integration, nor the community health insurance. The bill proposed has been designed and structured to ensure that all these gaps are addressed substantially. So this bill calls our attention to the fact that health, Mr. President, is well.
The Senate subsequently referred the bill to the Committee on Primary Healthcare and Communicable Diseases for further legislative action. Lawmakers during Wednesday's deliberations also passed the Informal Sector Employment Regulations Bill 2025 for third reading. The bill, which passed after its report was presented by the Committee on Employment, Labor and Productivity, is a consolidation of two proposals sponsored by Jigawa Northwest lawmaker Hussaini Babangida Uba and Sani Musa, representing Niger East.
Having thoroughly considered the bill, hereby recommends that the Senate do consider and pass the Informal Sector Employment Regulation Bill 2025 as amended.
The philosophical cornerstone behind this bill is to regulate the employment and conditions of service of domestic workers, which hitherto has been left unregulated.
The legislation establishes a legal framework for employment standards, workplace protection, and the formalization of informal labor markets. The bill now awaits concurrence by the House of Representatives before transmission to the President for assent. From the National Assembly, Abuja, for News Central, Sagir Ibrahim.
The key message here. Sagir, if you can hear me, what is the key message from all of this?
Well, first of all, blessings. Good afternoon. Let's confirm once again if you can hear me.
Yes, please go ahead.
All right, great. So for the National Primary Healthcare Development Act, Agency Act, for that act, the lawmakers feel it has become imperative for the act to be repealed and re-enacted. Repeal means that the act should be scrapped. Initially, the act was passed as far back as 1990. Between 1990 until now, the sponsor of the bill, Senator Adiola Solomon, the chairman of the Senate Committee on Appropriations, and also the lawmaker representing Ogun West, it is of his opinion and that of several other lawmakers who co-sponsored this bill, that it should be scrapped in order to meet and reenacted in order to meet with contemporary realities. He says that the bill does not capture universal health coverage, among many other things that provides for the organization, the agency, to carry out its responsibilities legally. He mentioned something around the fact that the last time the bill went through any form of alteration was sometime in the year 2004. Hence the need for a holistic approach to not just amend the bill this time, but completely scrap it, bring something in really new that matches universal best practices, and also capture the interest of Nigerians, especially at the grassroots levels, who are the direct beneficiaries of primary healthcare services. Back to you, Mr. Gay.
So how significant would you say that the passage of the Informal Sector Employment Regulation Bill is, and what is the immediate impact that it could have on workers in the informal economy?
Well, very, very significant, because firstly, blessings, I would say this is the first time that the country, if the bill is assented to by the president, so the bill has passed third reading now. The next steps for the bill is for it to go to the House of Representatives, where concurrence will be done. So it needs to be passed also up until third reading at the House of Representatives. Now, when the two houses have passed, the Senate and the House of Representatives have passed the bill concurrently for third reading, it goes to the table of the presidency, where he then signs it into law. When that happens, it provides a fresh framework for Nigerians who have been in the informal sector. Informal sector, informal sector, informal sector. What do we mean? Artisans, people who work as house helps, maids in the house. There for a long time has been no structure to capture the kind of work they do, compensation around the work, protection of their rights and interests. Some of them go through a lot in terms of not just verbal, but also physical abuse. This law is going to be revolutionary in the sense that it will provide a framework to not just guide people who are in the formal sector, employed in offices and have one form of engagement or the other, but to these other staff, who many would describe as domestic staff, there would finally be a law that would protect them and cover their interests. This time, for the first time, it will not just be about relying on NGOs and relying on non-governmental organizations to champion the right and fight for the causes of this individual, but there will be a law protecting them. So whenever there are issues with regards to remuneration, with regards to welfare, they will now be a structure when passed to law that protects them, and they can now officially follow a channel, to ensure that any.
All right. Thank you so much, Sagi Ibrahim, for the update. Thank you so much for the update. Right now, you're still watching the 12 Report. We'll go on a short break now. When we come back, we have more stories. Just stay with us. So staying with us on the news, still the 12 Report. And earlier on, we'd spoken about the editors' conference that is currently ongoing this 2025 edition. And my colleague, News Central's Aisha Saliu, is live at the venue of the conference to bring us the details. Aisha, so we're talking about the major focus of this year's conference. Different editors and different organizations have had their own submissions. But what has been the focal point so far?
Blessings, I'd say the focal point so far has been conversations around democratic governance and national cohesion. I mean, the editors here have been talking about it from yesterday and up till today. And part of their submissions would be they have even stressed the challenges that even media organizations, even the newsroom faces, and they have preferred some solutions, challenges starting from, funding challenges, and they're proposing 5 to 10-year corporate tax relief for media companies, amongst others. They've also talked about the ethical dilemma, upholding National Broadcasting Commission code, and also still carrying out the public good, the role of informing the public. But then I'm not going to be speaking alone about all of the submissions of the editors. I have one editor here who would be bringing us up to speed on what he thinks and also the submissions of his fellow editors. Please kindly join me, sir. Thank you. Good afternoon, sir.
Thank you very much.
Your full name and designation.
My name is Ben Shaman, and I used to be the director of news with the Voice of Nigeria. Now I work with the German television, DW.
Thank you so much, sir. I'd like to hear from you. What are some of the submissions of the editors, your colleagues here, regarding democratic governance and national cohesion?
Yeah, you see, those days you hear of things like when it bleeds or where it bleeds, it makes the news. You also be hearing of things like just publish and damn the consequences. But it has ceased to be so because there's the social responsibility theory in mass communication. Therefore, this news you're about unleashing to the people, is it bringing cohesion or is it just going to be a divisive kind of a thing? And that's when you're talking about election and the results and the deficit, that deficit trust in people, the editors are now being put on the front burner. What is it that you get from the field, and what is it that you are churning out from the public? Is it being guided by that kind of cohesion to ensure that Nigeria, there is that living in peace, so that you seek to inform the people? The people, therefore, must be informed professionally, and that's why the editors are here under very broad themes, so that there has to be a Nigeria first before the editor can do his job.
Yesterday, the president made a charge on the editors, saying that they should report responsibly. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that there has been some elements of recklessness when it comes to some reportage in Nigeria. Some people just report and damn the consequences. And this period where you're talking about citizen journalism, everybody that has a phone, Android phone, feels he's a journalist. Now, something bad has happened. You've not helped to save a situation. You're rather going live on Facebook to say, yes, you broke the news. It's just not it. And that's why the president is saying, look, in terms of the editors, ensure that there is a cohesion in the country. Don't just report anything just anyhow. Do a self-searching, a soul-searching of yourself before you even release the news. And that's why the editors are also making some demands from the president. Newsprint, for example, is that high. Then you look at cost of broadcasting, is that high. Can there be some tax relief from the government, which is doable? And that was why the president was saying that the charter of demand by the president of the guild, Anova, he said he had it in his pocket and he actually pocketed it. We therefore expect that the president will look at it in terms of the industry in Nigeria. How can we make it better? And that is why we are still here discussing Nigeria, not just Nigeria, the editor, not just the editor. What is the news that should the public what is the news that the public should know, because they have the right to know, even as the media has that duty to hold the government to account for their actions, inactions, to say exactly what they have done and what they have failed to do.
I like the fact that you talked about the media's role in holding the government accountable, but then let us talk about investigative reporting, because it's also the responsibility of the media and also journalists, reporters, to ensure that issues that we're bringing to the front burner is being properly investigated and also reported, and also talking about editorial oversight.
Yeah, you see, incidentally, if you go to Chapter 4 of the Nigerian Constitution, it gives us all manner of rights. Outside that, it also says that we can always hold the government accountable. And not just that, there is another act, the Freedom of Information Act, and that allows journalists, it allows every citizen armed with it. You can go to your local government and say, look, because I have this Freedom of Information Act, I want to know what projects you are going through, you are constructing. I want to know how much has entered the local government. I want to know the distribution pattern, what's the status of the project. And when they fail, the same law says you can take that person to court. And when the person is found guilty, of course, he's removed from office. Just that Nigerians are not just too conversant with the Freedom of Information Act. We have it so good in Nigeria when it comes to kind of having the information flow going to the sources. And where you are blocked, that Freedom of Information Act, FIO Act, can always set you free, give Nigerians exactly what they want. But Nigerians are simply sleeping on that constitutional right given unto them.
Earlier, you talked about citizens' journalism. Now, let us look at the evolving face of journalism. I mean, battling misinformation, AI, disruption, and also the credibility gap.
Yeah, you see, there's this thing you call deep fake when it comes to the social media information dissemination. Now, if somebody wants to do a mischief, they just remove your head here now using AI and bring somebody's head and plant on you. And anything, therefore, that is said to have been done by that image is assumed to be you, and the gullible minds will just believe that, yes, you actually did it. So issues of deep fake and you having the information, misinformation, disinformation here and there. The idea is when you see such disinformations or misinformation, the intention is to either ridicule a government official or bring the government down, or to ensure that there is a kind of a weakness just simply because someone feels he has to pick a bone from someone, he has to run someone down. And Professor Yomi Osinbajo, even as vice president, suffered that fate. Wole Soyinka suffered that fate, and they've been talking of how fake people have impersonated them to cause mayhem in families and all that stuff.
Thank you so much. Well, we have been speaking with Mr. Ben, and he has talked about, the critical challenges that editors face, even media houses face, and also the solutions. And right now, the discussions are still ongoing. Blessings.
Aisha, thank you so much. That was really in-depth, and like he said, it was spot on with the deep fakes that media is battling with at the moment. To more stories, the House of Representatives has set up a special ad hoc committee to review the Presidential Implementation Committee report conducted in the year 2000 under former President Olusegun Obasanjo. The decision followed an urgent motion on the need to take action over federal government abandoned landed properties and buildings across the country. Lawmakers expressed concern that the neglect has led to a loss of more than 20 trillion naira in national assets. Aside from this, the House also deliberated on other urgent motions and reform-related bills, key highlights of activities following the suspension of plenary on the first legislative day of the week. Our correspondent, Idong Joseph, has the details.
President Bola Tinubu's letter, read by the Speaker of the House, Abbas Tajuddin, proposing the creation of a National Cocoa Management Board, led the day's business. The board, according to the President, will regulate and harmonize cocoa-related activities nationwide, including promoting Nigeria's position in the global cocoa value chain.
While I trust that the House will consider the legislation of the bill in an expeditious manner, please accept, Right Honorable Speaker, the assurances of my highest regard.
After the President's letter, the plenary resumed with petitions and urgent motions of public importance. Mohammed Bargaja, member representing Isa Sabon Birni Federal Constituency of Sokoto State, drew the attention of the House to renewed bandit attacks, which have left more than 20 people dead and displaced thousands. The House resolved to mandate additional deployment of police and military personnel and directed NEMA to provide relief materials to affected communities.
From 6 to 8 November 2025 alone, 24 people were killed, while 41 were kidnapped in the following villages: Kurawa, Adamawa, Isa, Bargaja, Benzanke, and Urarmota.
Idong Joseph joins me now from the National Assembly complex to give us more details on what's happening. Joseph, looking at the concerns of lawmakers, do we know which properties or areas are being addressed?
This by motion of Kisli Chinda includes the National Library building in Abia State, and that's in Abuja, which for over 3 decades now, and also the Federal Secretariat in Ikoyi, which, according to him, he said there are over
all right, Idong Joseph, if you can hear me, apologies for that. We're struggling to hear you. We'll come back to you definitely to find out more about the property in terms of abandonments that the federal government is trying to address. Now, the National Nigerian Institute of International Affairs, in partnership with the Embassy of the Republic of Korea, has held a joint seminar in Lagos with the theme Africa's Rising Global Influence. The seminar brought together diplomats, scholars, and policy experts to discuss Africa's growing role in global politics, trade, and innovation. Speakers highlighted the continent's expanding economic potential, strategic importance, and increasing voice in multilateral institutions. Live from the seminar now is my colleague, News Central's correspondent Israel Ifarobo, who will be giving us more updates on this. Israel, a summit with the theme Africa's Rising Global Influence. What is the summit about?
Well, good afternoon, blessings, and thank you so much. Well, the seminar just ended here a few minutes ago, where we had diplomats, stakeholders, and indeed the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs, plus members from the Korean embassy, and they were here and they spoke extensively on variety of issues. Lots of conversations came out from this particular seminar that came up with the theme Africa's Rising Role, and this has brought up lots of other conversations as well. They are indeed asking for more collaboration between Korea, that's South Korea, and indeed Nigeria in the areas of business, agriculture, and in other areas as well that will bring about economic sustainability and development. These are some of the issues that have been talked about here today, this joint seminar. Well, I would be telling you all that happened here. There is a gentleman here who was also part of this conversation. His name is Kenya. He's into power and gas generation here in Nigeria. He's an energy expert. Let's speak to him here on how this seminar between the NIA and indeed the Korean embassy went about today. Mr. West, thank you for talking to us. This is News Central TV. So you've been here since morning. You were here for the seminar. What was this about, really? Talk to us.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I think the whole idea is for a global cooperation between the South Korea and Africa, with special emphasis on Nigeria, that we should collaborate together, work together for the development of Nigeria and Africa, and for harmonious relationship between the two. One of the key points here that we discover is that it's not that Korea is not doing enough, it's that both of us are not doing enough. The Nigerian government are not doing enough, and the Korean government also are not doing enough, So we need to do enough. However, my special emphasis goes to a situation whereby investors from Korea should identify serious entrepreneurs in Nigeria or in Africa wanting to industrialize their states, state, country, by that. Very simple. Look at what happened to the Dangote industry. We thank God for a man like that man, Dangote, who took the oil industry, took the bull by the horn, and changed the scenario. Imagine if we are dependent on our petroleum refineries, Kaduna, Warri, Port Harcourt, till now. We will not be having this ease of life, But one man did it. You can imagine if you have 10 like that. Otedola went to the power, he's doing fantastically well. So what I'm saying is that we need investors from those areas to identify, not giving money to government. We are not saying government are not doing it, but we are not seeing the impact. We need to see the impact. And that's my own main area. Identify entrepreneurs in Nigeria ready to do business with a bankable business plan, and then support. Also, our bankers here should be able to go beyond the collateralized banking, go to fractional banking, Go to area whereby you can take investment of the future and bank it now, and then use it to give loans and monitor it. That's how things work that way.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Awer, for talking to us. Well, there are blessings. Lots of other issues were also discussed today, from double taxation to how Nigeria can indeed collaborate with Korea to ensure economic sustainability. Well, from the want of time, and that will be all for me for now. Blessings.
Israel, thank you for the update on that. Now, the federal government is throwing its weight behind Nigeria's creative and advertising industry, saying it holds the key to national growth and global perception. At the 5th National Advertising Conference 2025, the Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, and industry leaders are focusing on how marketing communication can transform businesses and create growth in challenging times. Our correspondent, Sumaya Abubakar, joins us live from the conference venue with more details. Sumaya, how exactly is the government engaging with the advertising industry at this year's event?
Good afternoon, Blessings. Yes, we saw the attendance of the Minister of Information and National Orientation. And one of the key points is that he mentioned is the fact that the government is working to strengthen policies that would guide and help, truthful communications, also responsible ones, not just in, the advertising sector, but also in all sectors in general. He pointed out that due to, of course, the fact that there's been so many misinformation out there, and the emergence of AI, for this sector, it's not looking good for Nigeria, image, and also Nigeria's growth in terms of economic growth. So he said that the government here are going to be working on the theme of the event, which is the marketing communication, transforming businesses and creating growth in the challenging times. And he emphasized that the truth, must travel faster than falsehood. Also, he said Nigeria must take ownership of telling its own stories rather than leaving it to, the outside world to dictate what the story is like, because we know what misinformation can do. So because of that, he said that he believes that the government will be supporting the advertising and communication ecosystem, and also in order to help boost investors' confidence into coming into Nigeria to help, the communications ecosystem in general, and also to create jobs and promote the image of Nigeria globally. Now, he pointed out example of, recent events that has been happening with stories of, Nigeria making rounds, not negative stories, making rounds in the global world. And he pointed out that the advertising sector can also help in, navigating, this kind of narrative, but also to put Nigeria in the spotlight that would help globally in terms of the economic growth. So for them, it's all about strengthening policies to push communication and making sure that Nigeria's story is told greatly, and also there is an impact in terms of the growth economically.
Tamaya, thank you so much for bringing us the updates from there. To business now. Nigeria's economy maintained its growth momentum for the 11th consecutive month in October 2025, with the Central Bank of Nigeria, the CBN, reporting a composite purchasing managers index of 55.4 points, up from 54.0 in September. The sustained expansion reflects stronger business confidence and output performance across key sectors. The industrial sector's PMI rose to 54.2 points, while services recorded 55.6 and agriculture led with 55.7 points, its 15th straight month of growth. Now, out of 36 subsectors surveyed, 25 recorded expansion, underscoring the broad-based recovery. However, rising input costs in agriculture point to lingering price pressures despite improved economic stability. Still in business, Nigeria is moving to unlock up to $20 billion in investments from 70 priority gas projects as part of its push to transform natural gas into a driver of industrialization, energy security, and job creation. The projects identified by the Decade of Gas Secretariat and the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority span 6 clusters: power, fertilizer, petrochemicals, industrial feedstock, CNG, LPG, and gas export, with a potential demand of 15 billion standard cubic feet per day. NMDPRA CEO Farouk Ahmed said the initiative aims to validate and fast-track viable projects by aligning gas supply, pricing, infrastructure, job creation, and energy security. Still to come, White House defends Trump amid renewed Epstein scandal allegations. We'll bring you the details after the break. Stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. Now, at least 6 people have died and 22 others injured in a stampede during a military recruitment event at Accra's El-Wak Sports Stadium in Ghana. The incident occurred early on Wednesday when an unexpected surge of applicants overwhelmed security and rushed into the stadium gates ahead of the scheduled start. The exercise drew thousands due to high youth unemployment rate. President John Mahama visited the injured and ordered a thorough investigation into the tragic crash, and authorities promised tighter crowd control for future recruitment exercises. Now, a large-scale cleanup operation is taking place across Johannesburg as South Africa's economic hub prepares to host the G20 summit on the 22nd and 23rd of November. Streets are being cleared, public spaces renovated, and infrastructure given a quick facelift ahead of the arrival of global leaders. The city, long plagued by service delivery failures, power outages, and poor waste management, is witnessing an unusual burst of activity.
So regarding the G20, I can see that there's many changes that are happening in the city because the roads are being fixed, the infrastructures are being also fixed. So there's also part of Johannesburg that is being cleaned up. So we are happy about that. We are happy about the change that we are seeing. So we're just happy, man. We just want to see more change after this.
We don't even worry about this G20. We know it's very important, they must come. But we are worried about after. What is going to be happening after, they cannot even fix.
Also, the White House has dismissed renewed allegations linking the U.S. President Donald Trump to the late financier and convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, insisting he did nothing wrong. The controversy reemerged after newly unsealed court documents reignited public scrutiny over Epstein's connections with high-profile figures, including Trump and former President Bill Clinton. In a statement on Wednesday, a spokesperson said the accusations resurfacing online were baseless political attacks aimed at tarnishing Trump's image ahead of next year's election. The administration maintained that Trump had cut all ties with Epstein years before his 2019 arrest and subsequent death in a New York jail. And now, senior international correspondent and anchor Afia Hagen joins us for more on this developing story. Afia, this newly unsealed Epstein documents are explosive. What exactly do they reveal, and how is Trump involved in all of this that requires the White House defending him this much?
Tranche of documents relating to Jeffrey Epstein, tens of thousands of pages being released. And what we saw yesterday and into today is these emails being released. Now, these are not emails that have been sent or received by President Donald Trump, and we do have to make that clear. What is in this tranche of documents is emails between Jeffrey Epstein and other people like author Michael Wolff, and they talk about President Trump, discussing Epstein in relation to Trump's social orbit. One email claims that Trump knew about the girls. Without further clarifications, we don't know who he is talking about or what he knows about these girls. In another one of the emails, Epstein says in 2019, Trump came to my house many times but never got a massage. Another 2011 message from Ghislaine Maxwell, who is now in prison, to Jeffrey Epstein, described Donald Trump as that dog that hasn't barked, adding that Trump had spent many hours at my house with one of the victims, and that victim's name has been redacted. So we don't know who that is. There's speculation that it is Virginia Giuffre, but like I said, that name has been redacted on the documents, so we don't know who they are referring to.
Interesting. Now, Trump's team insists that he had nothing to do with Epstein beyond casual social contact, and that was years ago. What do the files actually show about their relationship, and does this change the public's understanding of how close they were, comparing what the file is saying and, what the White House is saying?
Yes, the White House insists that President Trump knew Jeffrey Epstein, was aware of him, but just in the sense that Epstein was a member at his Mar-a-Lago club and he'd asked him to resign. Now, Epstein says in these emails that he'd actually never been a member of the club, so we don't know if he was asked to resign. These emails show that Epstein and Trump were in the same social orbit. There's a suggestion that Trump knew about what was happening with Jeffrey Epstein and other girls. Like I said, there's just a suggestion. There is no inference that Trump was in any way involved in any of Jeffrey Epstein's crimes, but that they had overlapping social circles, that there was invitations, that there was social contact. It underlines that Trump and Epstein had been together at some points, that knew each other. This isn't quite the biggest smoking gun that perhaps some people were hoping for, have been wanting, have been looking for, but it does give the impression that Epstein and Trump were close. Something that was previously framed as a casual acquaintance seems to deepen the proximity that these two men had to each other. And in the world of politics, that perception is very, very important.
All right, News Central's international correspondent and anchor Afia Hagen, thank you so much for bringing us the update on that from the update on the White House. Nigeria just crossed an important milestone in its financial journey, one that is still shaping conversations across the economy. Now, after years of scrutiny over transparency, weak enforcement, and gaps in tackling financial crimes, the country has finally stepped into a new chapter. This shift that I'm talking about began on the 24th of August 2025, when the Financial Action Task Force confirmed that Nigeria had met the conditions required to exit its grey list. This is a category that places countries under tighter monitoring. The impact of that decision is still unfolding, and Nigerians are beginning to feel what it means for business, banking, and international perception. Now, the delisting did not happen in isolation. South Africa, for example, the other continental heavyweight, also left the grey list at the same plenary. With both countries moving forward at the same time, Africa's two largest economies have signaled a renewed commitment to global financial standards and accountability. Now, it is a moment that has already begun to shift how investors talk about the region and how global institutions view Africa's financial ecosystem. For Nigeria, in case you're wondering how this affects you as an individual, the effects are showing up in areas that matter to everyday people. Banks now face fewer international restrictions. Cross-border transactions that used to attract heavy scrutiny are beginning to ease, and I'm sure a lot of people would like to see that. Businesses that rely on global partnerships or funding no longer face the automatic suspicion that comes with being flagged for financial risk. Remittances from the diaspora, a lifeline for many families, also stand to benefit as regulatory bottlenecks reduce. Now, the broader question is what Nigeria will do with this moment. Delisting boosts confidence, both international and national. But confidence is only useful if it translates into economic growth, stable financial systems, and opportunities for the citizens. This has to reflect in the everyday pocket, like we always say. The country has been given a chance to reset its financial reputation, and how it manages this opportunity will define the next phase of its economic story. The question is whether the government will listen or repeat history with crackdowns and censorship. Ignoring this generation is no longer an option, and the same applies to South Africa as well. The African continent is experiencing a boom, and this delisting is one other example. And that's your postscript.